Hello, cosplay world. We're back with the third of a 4-part series in the Velvet cosplay. And this time around, we're going to be, well, making a top. And it does have some distinctive features. Right now, we're going to be adding kind of this trim, but it is a costume or the character kind of just pulled this out of the trash. So we're going to be going along and distressing it, cutting it inconsistently, wearing it out, beating up with a bit of rasp. Rasps are pretty good at getting hold of single or individual threads and pulling them out, making them look more naturally worn. Just simply cutting it at weird angles with the scissors is still kind of not, it doesn't make it super realistic. It just looks like it's cut up a bit. So you actually need to beat it up and distress it in order for it to create that feel. There's also on the back slits, and they are opened and they create this kind of window blind feel. So to make sure that the skin is shown to the back, we're simply going to put a dot of hot glue, or you could stitch it up as well if you want this to be I guess safe to put in your washing machine. But for me, a lot of these pieces are glued on, and we've got some details that would not be good to put into a dryer. So we're going to be hot gluing it, and that'll be just fine for right now. So you see the trim. We are creating a kind of shield-shaped trim along the edge. We're going to be adding bias tape along that edge, simply as a small white detail. There's a few smaller white details too. We're going to go into that a little bit later. But we will be attaching a few rivets where we're going to do the lacing. Or, yeah, eyelets. These are eyelets. Rivets are different. Because the front of the top is largely open except for a small band of fabric that is holding the top together. And we're going to be adding one of the detail pieces, one of the plastic bits that we made earlier in the first video to that. The trick here is to bind enough material underneath of it so that it bears the weight without sagging, especially since it's on the top, or on a top where we're going to potentially need to cover up as much as we can. We don't need to put too much weight on the piece itself and create problems for us. So as you can see, I'm going to punch. I'm just using my hot knife here because it's the closest thing around, but a large sewing needle is enough to punch a hole, allowing us to thread the eyelet through and press the eyelet in place. This is a just a press punch, and you can switch out the heads on it for whatever you're doing as far as eyelets or rivets and various other sewing hardware. So it's a pretty useful tool here, and it's incredibly strong. It's much better than, say, your hand presses or your hammers because it's more consistent, even pressure. So if you're having problems with your rivets being dented or uneven or smushing, they'll smash and they'll go at a diagonal angle, this is a tool for you. This will solve those problems mostly. You can still kind of smash it diagonally if you don't put it in correctly, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You can switch the heads out to whatever you like. So we're going to be lacing a bit of lace through those eyelets later on, and then as you can see, we already have the bias tape added to the trim of the left side of the cosplay. So the top has a detail, and I'm going to be ironing on a bit of vinyl applique, I believe, or it's an iron-on vinyl detail, and I simply drafted it from a few pieces, and we're going to be cutting it out with a hot knife. Again, the hot knife is an incredibly dexterous tool when you're trying to cut things out that are small and complex. And as you can see, we've added a bit of strap. We made the strap in the last video, and the bit of hardware or embellishments there is from the first video as well. So check those out if you have not. So you simply need to cut out the piece, and we are going to iron it onto the material itself. A bit of presser cloth is nice so that you don't end up blemishing the piece, but any kind of reasonably durable fabric scraps will work. You probably don't want to go with something as heavy as, say, denim, but you get the idea. You don't want to possibly damage the iron-on with the iron itself. These are the opaque version. Make sure you get the opaque iron-ons. You can get whites that are not opaque. They're simply a iron detail, and they can be semi-transparent. They're not exactly the best. So when you're buying these, don't buy the cheap ones because they are not necessarily good. And I'm going to just kind of fight with this thing. Yeah, peeling off a sticker. The downside, I think, of the hot knife is that I was actively melting the applique or the iron-on thing, which got stuck to the paper. So maybe I shouldn't be so hasty with that. So the last piece, or we're going to be adding the details to the dress itself. These are kind of attached in a strange way to the blouse itself. There's a few belts as well, but they're straps with belt loops attached. We'll get in that later. So this detail needs to kind of come off, and we have clips and we have binders that we're adding to each end, even though it's not part of like the design. But that's largely because these are very thin threaded beaded pieces, and the last thing I want to happen is for it to get caught on something and break off. I've seen a number of cosplays just evaporate because a single thread got caught and the beads just all go. Additionally, I'm going to be tying these off every 4 or so beads, so that even if it does snap, you're not going to lose the entirety of the set. You're just going to lose a few beads, and it's not going to be totally ruined. The front end, or no, the back end has it attached via an alligator clip. The alligator clip is easily pulled off if it's caught on something, and so relieves a bit of that stress, hopefully causing minimal damage here with beading work. Additionally, we just kind of want to get it off because it's a detail that we can add later, and otherwise it just kind of gets in the way and it hangs off the piece much lower without a human body to support it. So it's good to put on later. The front has a kind of a key ring attachment to it, and we can attach that to the belt later on. We have a few beads that I cut in half and added as details, and each is tied off as well. We have a few different sizes here, but they are largely the same kinds of beads. I am double threading this just so that it's a bit heavier and thicker, but otherwise beading is beading there. And here we have I searched around in the various bits of jewelry hardware and figured out what looked best or what was closest to what I was looking for. And yeah, those are the alligator clips I mentioned earlier that allow for the piece to come off fairly easily or prevent it from being damaged. Alright, I believe in the next video we are going to cover the armor bits and the details we're missing. So we have a bracer and some boots. I hope you guys checked it out. Thanks for watching. Good times to all. Bruh. If you like this, you should check out finalcosplay.com. There's lots of pretty cool stuff over there. See you guys next time. Good times to all. Rah!